best brands are the most emotional brands. And American Apparel, it was such of a time. Maybe it's fine if it just stays there.
If you took out the sex, it would be kind of boring. If you took out the idealist component, sweatshop free, it would just be kind of sleazy. But you put the two of them together and you have something that's interesting. It's edgy, but it's also strangely wholesome at the same time.
Disco pants, leggings, crop tops, bodysuits, high-waisted jeans.
It was basic, so it was those standard things that everyone needs.
You couldn't throw a stone in Brooklyn without hitting someone in a deep V.
Hey, are you wearing my t-shirt?
This is so comfortable. This is what like every woman in their 20s who just wants something casual to wear.
You couldn't go anywhere without seeing an American Apparel ad or billboard or bus bench.
The women in his advertising always look like young and bruised, like they've been in a fight in middle school.
We would all go to the same parties. We were all wearing it, and it was just like, that was the era.
And then the whole thing changed.
American Apparel is set to shut its stores across the world.
Make a free fall.
I mean, this is made for the movies, right? What's gone on at American Apparel.
Like, people don't understand, like, where the fuck did American Apparel go? You know, like, what happened?
LA in the 2000s was such a center for culture. The time was defined by like the hipster movement. The hipster was sort of like the counterculture, pretended to not care about much, dirty Converse and tight jeans and, you know, smoked cigarettes and it was a mustache and sort of like me, but back then. And American Apparel was always a staple in those outfits.
The t-shirt was like the genesis of American Apparel. They were perfectly soft. They didn't shrink in the wash. They were a little bit see-through where it was a little bit provocative. The fabrication that they invented, the tri-blend. But what it was most effective at was mission-driven causes.
We're figuring out how to make clothing where it doesn't damage people's lives. It's called sweatshop free.
He was the first one that I heard as a reporter talking about that stuff, and I thought it was so interesting that why didn't everyone operate this way?
So you can see it, you can feel it, you can tell people care about it. If anybody has taste and a conscience, they end up at American Apparel.
It's kind of a necessary condition to be an entrepreneur that you have unusual points of view. 99% of people will just totally flame out in a business setting. But one of them may have an idea that's so creative and so different that it catches fire.
It's hard to imagine because people know American Apparel with hundreds of stores, but there was 50 people.
And the slogan was, we're sick of their crap, we're gonna take on the Gap.
And we were now building an empire, because that's really what it was.
The culture of American Apparel was very startup, but we prided ourselves on kind of being a little bit more punk.
I can say whatever I want. You know, this is the fashion business.
We were opening at one point a store a week. A store a week.
He blew up. Like, it was remarkable and fast.
Hey! What's up?
Dove's personality and insistence on being a part of the story really helped American Apparel, especially in the beginning.
I was with my best friend and we were just walking around and she stopped. She said, "That's the owner of American Apparel." And I said, "How do you possibly know who the owner of American Apparel is?" And she said, "He's on the back cover of Vice."
His energy is just like...
He's really intense, yeah. He's definitely really intense. He knows that he's intense.
I cannot fucking do it, okay? Let me get a glass of water and I'm all yours, but I'm not standing up. I can't do it. I'm sorry.
He's complex, man.
Right? Religion freaks me out, man. I just believe in fucking. Right, Carla? Yes. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, you know, it's like, I don't know. I'm scared of religion, okay? And don't put that shit. It will get me in too much trouble. I get you in trouble. I got to see, like, the SNL skit. What'd I do so wrong?
Thank you for...
They're making fun of my boss. It didn't occur to me that like they were pointing out something that was like a red flag.
You're in the fashion business, entertainment business. Women are important to have around. And they're easy to fall in love with. So what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Right, Carla? Yes. All right. You know, what are you going to do? Like, you fall in love with someone? You know, it's great to meet you. You're the woman of my life. I think you're ace in the hole, but sorry, you know, we can't. Because you come from the wrong background, or you work for me, or work for him, or you work for her, or be inappropriate, be this, be that. You know, the heart wants what the heart wants. You know? And then you deal with the, you know, there's also repercussions.
Well, the CEO of a popular clothing company, American Apparel, has been slapped with a sex suit.
This is the second sexual harassment lawsuit brought against the American Apparel CEO, Dov Charney, this month alone.
Shares which once topped $15 now wallow below $1, ridden all the way down under Charney's reign.
When everything was going well and all this was okay, it's when things go downhill that it's an issue.
Dov Charney, founder of American Apparel, has been ousted by company board members. He's been in the news quite frequently for allegations of, masturbation during meetings, walking around in his underwear in the office, sexual harassment, the list goes on.
Freedom's important and liberty is important, and that's not being protected in this society right now. There has to be a revolution. When millennials and Gen Z figured out that Big Brother took over their freedom in the name of safety, in the name of everybody being happy, what did we lose? We lost innovation. We lost the right to be different. We lost the right to scream, fuck you, in the middle of Times Square. And take your t-shirt off and take your pants off and stand there in your underwear and put your finger out. The company or the hedge fund, it was all one and the same. My opponent spent a lot of money trying to assassinate me. What really happened is they robbed me, but that story is not out. I don't know if it'll ever get out.
Something that like Western culture really loves is to think that something is completely 100% good, like Beyonce, or like completely 100% bad, like Dov Charney.
I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. I don't want to talk about Dov. And the fact that I'm talking about Dov Charney, some experiences that I had almost 10 years ago, and like whatever platform is running this, like the media is implicated because they're bringing this story back up to the surface. And so like everybody in this room has to ask themselves why. Why it's important to talk about this guy who did atrocious things because he also did some really cool things. The reason that tipped the scale for me is because a close friend of mine who I worked with, felt like I could share the story in a way that people could understand. And so I was like, I'm down, I'll do it. But, why anybody wants to watch a documentary about Dov Charney, you need to ask yourself what train wreck you're interested in looking at.
What happened in Cisco? You can't believe too much of what has already been said in the media, but you also can't buy too much into Dov's bullshit either. There's Dov's side, the media side, and the truth. And so you gotta find that like middle ground, because both are very, very warped in their perspectives.
To be colorful, crazy, unpredictable, eccentric character right now is dangerous.
When all this Me Too stuff was happening, Dov was like not in the picture. And so where he is now with all of it, I'm not sure.
Well, I'm surviving. Like, I'm not sure this documentary could cause me damage to. Because, if I get out there again, or it gains traction, it could then rise like this, oh, look what he assaulted and this and that and this and that. And he shouldn't be given another chance. It's like this takeout culture. Cancel. He's supposed to be canceled. To make a t-shirt is an art. Hey, we're ready? First you have the hemming of the sleeve. One by one, the sleeves get hemmed. Then they get closed by the next operator, and they're preparing the sleeves, which will be used several seconds later. You know what? You have to slop. Let me show you what's going on here. Where's the cover stitch? She's doing the cut. This is the operation I'm missing. All right, let me do it again. Start again. Action. Okay, first we have the hemming of the sleeve. One by one, the sleeves get hemmed. Then they get closed by the next operator. That garment gets passed off to the collar setter. You see there's 4 prongs. Hey, wait, she's on the phone. It's kind of weird that you never make it to the final step. You can have me narrate this after, too. The American dream is we have a level playing field. Some people really make it. And if it's not you, it could be your son or your daughter, right? That's the old story, right? We'd say son, really, when you hear the old story. Well, maybe I didn't make money, but I want to make sure the American dream's available to my son. I was a bit of a dope at school, but he's going to Harvard, you know what I'm saying? The old story, right? That's gone. You rise to power. It's a takedown culture. You rise to power, and you're sitting there with a gun. You know what I'm saying? It's not, the American dream is being threatened right now. If these clowns fucking take American Apparel, I'm gonna fucking leave them with a rotten little shell. Well, I'm going to Delaware. I'm gonna try and get the company. It's a conspiracy.
Before we start, there is to be no recording, videotaping, or photographing inside the courtroom. If the court please, we would call Mr. Charney to the stand. Very good.
I do.
You may proceed. Mr. Charney, please introduce yourself to the court and tell the court about your background.
My name is Dov Charney. I started American Apparel when I was 16 years old in Montreal.
I remember when I was a kid, my grandfather was a hustler, but my father, like, it was considered hustle is over. Seriously. There's a whole layer of Jewish hustlers. Their children, no.
The principal called me in and he said, it's not working out. Dov is too difficult. You had to go see a psychiatrist. He interviewed us together, separately, and then he said, the only way we can allow Dov to come back to school is if you changed your own expectations of your son and you allowed him to become what he's destined to become.
I actually wanted to be a hustler.
You gotta let your kids fulfill their own destiny. I want to show you something. American Apparel started off in my basement. This is where Dov used to sleep. You know, these would be some of the catalogs. Dov Charney, owner, American Apparel. So here, 11-year-old schoolboy edits his own paper.
What was it called?
What's up? Funny. I tell you, it was provocative stuff. They were just kids. This is primary school. You know, somebody wrote about nuclear power, hashish dealing.
It's fun, you know, like I remember Dov, like he was like a mad newspaper head. He was into the role, you know.
That was my first business.
And I couldn't spell. It was a mess of a paper.
Actually, you've seen that footage of him in 20th Century Chocolate Cake. It was around that age when I met Dov.
Do you think you could manage your own money?
Oh, yeah. Look, you see, I managed, but a lot of other kids had problems. You know, I sort of cheated the system.
Dov, certainly from an early age, had a very kind of libertarian streak to him in the sense that he was very opposed to rules or regulations that would limit his freedoms.
One day, Dov ran out of hot water at his mom's house. He walks over naked with his briefcase, okay? My mom answers the door. He's like, I need to use the shower. You know, he's like, 15 or whatever, but he still is like always naked. Comes out of the steamy bathroom, but he's dressed now in like a suit, gets Jamie, and then they take a taxi up to school.
I started at 15 hustling things. First it was TDK SA90s, then it was glasses. I had these like fake Vornays, and then t-shirts. I was very small. In Canada, it was hard to find extra small white cotton t-shirts, but in New York, you can get them. I put on this shirt, I looked at myself and I said, USA, here I am, champion, okay? And that, it was cultural. The knits, the feeling of how I felt when I put on an American t-shirt. They didn't have Hanes in Canada. They didn't have Fruit of Loom in Canada.
We just thought of this idea of printing t-shirts to sell at the Forum, and we were making, you know, a few G's a night.
I said, I'll buy the shirts, flip them to you. I know where to get them in New York, whatever. So I started buying Hanes t-shirts in the United States. Then I'd smuggle the shirts in some way, somehow. The company took on the name American Apparel because I was bringing American product to the Canadian landscape. I had a great line. I said, these shirts are for a bar mitzvah for my cousin. A bar mitzvah.
We'd just be the kids full of money outside the concerts.
He's the only guy that ever got caught, though.
I got arrested at the Madonna concert.
Dub didn't know when to run. He thought he could, like, you know, talk his way out of it with the cops.
Dub, I think, loved the business side of it. He also loved the thrill. There was something slightly illegitimate in about what was happening.
Dub definitely got a liking for the t-shirt business.
So he started off in my basement, but the real manufacturing, the first place was South Carolina. When he only had one semester left, you know, at Tufts, 4-year course.
I got on I-95 South or one of those interstates, and I just...
He called me up and he said,
Judd, I ain't coming back.
Just wanted to start American Apparel full-time.
This is fucking crazy. Like, I'm in the South. So I started there. And I worked there for 10 years. What did I learn? How to make t-shirts, come on now. How to do it right. Buy the yarn, get it knitted, get it dyed, get it cut, get it sewed, get it shipped. Everything was so well dialed in to make Made in USA t-shirt, but...
In a few moments, I will sign the North American Free Trade Act into law. NAFTA, which basically is a trade agreement between the United States, Mexico, and Canada, will tear down trade barriers between our three nations.
Post-NAFTA, which happened in 1994, apparel manufacturing in the U.S. decreased dramatically. It put tons of people out of jobs.
They were moving to Mexico. It was cheap. The network of suppliers that I relied upon were disappearing. My only option is to just go bankrupt. I had to probably bust a move. In Los Angeles, I remember driving, I'd see like, holy shit, it's like a cut and sew facility. They're sewing t-shirts. They're sewing something in there. Like, started to realize, like, in California, things were still rolling. And I said, you need to. It's Los Angeles. It's Hollywood. Initially, I came here to sell garments to the streetwear industry, the screen print industry. Every night, there was another party at someone's house or at a gallery.
There wasn't much in the way of social media.
But it was social, literally.
It was just this time of sort of lawlessness without the internet sort of looming over us.
There was no fear of the takedown culture. If you did something outrageous, you're safe. Because everybody's a little bit nuts. Everybody's having a good time. It was totally liberating.
We had a Halloween party. There's probably 200-300 people there in costumes. Dub showed up with his dog Yvette, completely nude, just with flip-flops. Hung around for 2-3 hours. That was his costume.
Today, they come arrest you or something. Yeah. It's a pervert! I think it's two things. One, I was naive, and two, there was a different time. Those are the two elements. Well, because I hadn't reached a level of success where anyone had taken notice. July 97, like, I moved here. And just a couple of years later, the thing's jamming out $200 million a year. Like, it really rose fast.
Starting at 7,000 pieces a week, doing 7,000 pieces a day.
He just exploded.
There was many times where like I'd find myself talking to like an actor or an artist or a musician that I really admired, and they'd say, so what do you do? And I'd say, oh, I work at the American Apparel factory. And they go, whoa, cool. I heard that place is crazy. And it's just like being part of American Apparel at that time, like you felt notoriety. You felt like this like tiny sense of celebrity.
He doesn't play by the rules. He makes up his own narrative and business model and goes down that road, and then it's so new and fresh that people get excited. Not a lot of people can make those ideas into a reality, and not a lot of people can convince a lot of people to go on the Piper's dream.
I look at a lot of the young people, there's a big anti-American corporate feeling, but what the kids are missing is that it's not the corporate model that's wrong. It's the generation running the corporations.
This was the opportunity. I come out of the Army, I'm ambitious, and I came to American Apparel because it was American made. It had hot girls on their advertisements. It was like the epitome of a cool brand at the time, at least as I saw it. And so if you're somebody who wanted to be a part of something great, then, you know, you're gonna be totally seduced by that. And I was, you are.
It was like the MIA paper planes era. And I was like, Mom, there's this really cool company and they make clothes in the States and like the garment workers get paid fairly. I had seen like a mixed race girl in an ad. And like growing up mixed race, like that really spoke to me. So I ended up getting a job at the Flatiron store.
Tell you I could get a 15-year-old, let's just call her a female in this case. I say, organize this so we can sell it. And I go back and I go off and I go, maybe I go smoke a joint somewhere and yell at someone on the phone and come back and it's like, holy shit. Because you know what? We seen like when Mozart was 12, you know, if you can find that person, so I was really good at finding those people.
He was sort of, you could almost say like the conductor of the culture. Like he wasn't always out, but he was around all the people that were out. So they'd come back and talk about the trends. And, you know, he was like a sponge. Anybody came to the office, if you're wearing something cool, he would like steal it from you and then turn it into an American Apparel garment.
I remember bringing a gold high-waisted pant that my aunt was wearing in the 70s, and it ended up being a super seller.
He had built something that had the framework for people to thrive, and he let them thrive.
I'm 23 years old, and next thing you know, I'm in charge of global retail supply projections.
I was getting sent around the tri-state area, and then tri-state area turned into Toronto, and then Toronto turned into like, oh, you're Asian, go to Japan. And ended up being the general manager for Japan. This is like from when I was, I want to say like 18 to 22. It was a great place to become an adult. You know, I started at 20, I was a kid. Dov came to town and he asked if anyone knew how to use Excel, and I did. And then a couple years later, I became wholesale director. He'd never hired people with an MBA. He wanted kids who were gonna work hard, who were gonna think outside the box, that he could mold to help him grow his company in the way that he saw fit.
You have this 20-year-old girl wearing like hot shorts and a bralette, and she's like pointing at you, telling you like, why doesn't the stores in Mexico have, you know, X, Y, and Z?
The version of life that I trust is balls to the wall. Okay, that's the one I like. That's the one I believe in. Like, you know, when someone says, well, you know, I just have to have my weekends and I have to have my yoga. You know, every year I just have to go to, you know, Burning Man and whatever, okay, like, okay. We'll see you in bankruptcy court. Okay, you know what I'm saying?
You have to put aside like your desire for work-life balance
Work-life balance? Fuck you, work-life balance.
He bought a refrigerator and stocked it with food. He bought us vape pens so that we wouldn't go have cigarette breaks.
You go all in. Like Steve Jobs, he died on the cross for the iPhone, you know what I mean?
We have a fully stocked fridge here. You don't need to leave and go off for hours and have lunches or dinners.
I was deployed in Iraq. Even at war, we were working 12 on, 12 off. And Dove, minimum, for somebody who was like under 30, was like, you should be working 15 hours. You know, he personally was probably doing 18, 20 hours.
On one end, you would feel exhausted. I shouldn't have to work this hard. But then on the other end, you would feel empowered. I'm 20 years old. I dropped out of college. And then to be told, like, what you're doing is really important. That's a huge, you know, motivator to keep people on that hamster wheel.
You're trying to train yourself to tolerate this style of living because clearly there is a 22-year-old in Ohio that can tolerate it. And if you're not, then how can you ever desire to be successful?
Dove has a spidey sense. He would know if people were tiring and needed to be reminded of why we were there. So he would give these very impassioned, motivating speeches. Some of the speech would be, you know, him yelling about something that's not going right or something that needs to change. But then he would talk about how we were changing things. We were changing an industry. It's very similar to what rallied so many people behind Obama, was this idea of change and hope and a future that looked different than, you know, the present we were in.
It is that sort of mystic leader. People want to be around him. People want to work with him. They want to help him.
I'm here with Maceo, and it looks good, right? Good glasses, right shirts on, nice touch, right belt, right shoes, right pants. Everything's right. This guy, he never looks bad.
It felt good to be visible to the CEO. But what that seduction creates is a leverage, because now you want to continue to drink the Kool-Aid and you want more proximity to Dove and you want more visibility. And so slowly your goal is to become like him. The goal at American Apparel was, we're at 600 million and we need to get to 1 billion. That's it. And if you're not on board with that, then you can bounce. And that's also how America is. And that's also how our leadership is.
Dove Charney is here. He is the founder and CEO of American Apparel. Do you want to take it public?
At the right time, yeah. But I want to do it on my own terms. But if we do go public, I'm sure you'll be a hot stock.
American Apparel is going public. Charney's freewheeling style is about to face a new environment.
You know, I admire unhinged behavior in management. You know?
You literally want to help him, kill him, beat him, or hug him. You know, there's really like, there's no in-between. There's no middle point.
Like when I'd hear Catherine lost her cool at a store in Tokyo, I kind of liked it. Okay. So what did she say? She screamed at everybody? Okay. She had a meltdown? I'd rather people have a meltdown than the store be dusty.
He always was like a very hands-on CEO.
Because I like going this, look, your store, honestly, your store looks like shit. The manager would cry. They try to like see if they could overpower me, but they never could. Because if I'd show up to a store and the staff started shaking me down, I know how to get back. I just bring in an army. Okay, like you guys think you're gonna shake me down? Like you're gonna like walk off the job because I told you the place was filthy? Are you joking?
The chaos, the screaming, that was American Apparel. It became addictive almost to work there.
I launched my company, went public, man. We got a valuation of over $400 million. Right out of the gate.
Charney's freewheeling style is about to face a new environment. American Apparel is going public.
You know, with this influx of cash came this rapid expansion. It just felt like a whirlwind at that time.
I had a map of New York, 4 feet tall and 2 feet wide,
and I'd start putting pins where we're gonna start opening stores. I'd have one of those bicycle guys. I'd sit in the back. I started looking at everything that was available. We were opening at one point a store a week. A store a week.
We had lines around the block for people that wanted to come work for the store, which is crazy.
Everything he did, Urban Outfitters would copy, Gap, all these places tapped into his ideas.
Remember the white zipper hoodie? Became the standard. If they're singing the way I sing, if they're wearing the clothes I invent, that means we're on the right track.
Like it or hate it, it works. The company sells $500 million of these clothes a year.
I knew Dove when he still lived in this little bungalow in Echo Park that was like super quaint. It would always just be like him and his dogs and some girls running around half naked. And then he's like, oh, I got to show you something. I got this house in the hills.
At the time that I stayed there, Dove's house was him surrounding himself with people who are extremely intelligent. The first floor was traveling employees. The second floor is mostly models, people that had physical relationships with Dove.
I kept telling him, make Dove Charney a brand as big as American Apparel is. You know, like, and I would use Hugh Hefner as an example. It's like, Hugh Hefner is as big as Playboy. So Dove started developing the celebrity of Dove Charney, but it wasn't contained.
Yeah, I remember seeing this one for the first time. My reaction was just like eye rolling over an ad about Dove's boner.
Around this time, it was this rise of like celebrity culture, right? Like Paris Hilton and Britney Spears and Lindsay.
Blogs were a very big deal. Gawker was one of the first things you would check in the morning.
Dove's whole cult of personality was perfect bait.
Whenever I wrote about American Apparel, the traffic on that story was much higher than all the other ones, right? So now I'm incentivized. I'm like, oh, I got to write about American Apparel again.
We would create fake personas. I would comment, being like, I can't believe that guy Dove Charney is at it again, raping models. It was about attention, and it was also because we were advertising on these blogs and we wanted people to click our ads.
What a fucked up pre-Me Too world where they thought it would be cool to portray Dove Charney as a sex pest. That would be like good for business.
She's a slut!
Hey, Mr. Charney!
People always want to know the war stories. Was he really like creepy like that? Absolutely he was. You know, is everything that every person said true? I haven't read all of those things to know. The general narrative and my lived experience of that place was that it was just as creative and innovative as it was toxic and abusive once you got into that circle.
There was an open secret about the kind of relationships that Dove was having with his employees.
If it's a truly consensual, loving relationship, there's nothing wrong with it. I think that those relationships can be very healthy and are very much part of living in a free world.
If you had initially entered a relationship with Dove, fully consensual, and then you were given a free car, a free place to stay, you were on a work visa, so you don't live in that country, maybe not even that city, your support network isn't there, you're given bonuses, you're made to sign arbitration agreements, and then you're thinking about what happens if I say no? It would be, because of the favors that they were getting, extremely difficult to withdraw consent.
Really what the sexual aspects of those relationships show is how Dove used power in general.
I had a situation where I had a relative come to the office to pick up something, and he literally froze and was like, what's wrong? What is that? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, what's that screaming? Like, well, what's going on? I'm like, oh, that's just Dove. It's normal.
Quit or submit. We're going to play a game on it. Bang. Let's go. Quit or submit. We're going to do 30 spring reports tonight. We're going to lay them out here. I ain't driving anywhere till we're done. I'm standing right here.
He would get on my case because I didn't bring the soldier in me to work enough.
You're not good enough. Got it? You're not strong enough.
And he would scream at you, wait! You know, like, and he would like do this with his hands, like as if he wanted to like wring your clothes or strangle you.
Fucking make you submit or quit. I can submit right now. Like, we will see. We will see.
In the media, mostly people talk about the sex scandals. Not saying it discounts it from needing to have light shed on it. I'm just saying no one's really discussed the rage.
If there's nothing. If you do it Monday morning, no.
I have to check. That's all I
Listen, you're fucking gonna do it. Now I got you. I fucking caught you. Shame on you, little fuck! You should be knowing Miami did better. Say, we caught something. We caught something. You fuckers are so shitty. I'm gonna fuck you. You deserve it. Move on.
One vivid experience that I remember, he got down on his hands and knees and like pretended to jerk off on this guy for something related to just the graphic design work that was in the factory.
You little fuck. Everybody's scared of your little anger. Well, you do better.
He raised his hand and pretended like he was gonna slap me and stop within like an inch of my face. It's like I knew it, I'd seen it a million times. He's done this before, but when it was me, you know, and then him just like full rage, not pretending, full rage, slapping his own face. Like he wanted that to be my face.
If someone is doing something that you don't agree with, you tell Dove. If you want more money, it comes from Dove. If you want a different job title, it generally comes from Dove. But if you have a problem with Dove, there's no one really to go to with that. It basically said you are releasing the company from any kind of issue that you might have from it, and if you do have an issue, it's going to be taken care of in a private mediation.
Sometimes I have this old saying, you know, like, I'm fucking sick of booting you in the ass. You know, my foot is hurting from booting you in the ass. Can't you just do the job right this time? Like, get the shit shipped before 6. It's the cutoff. You know, like, my foot is aching. You know, it's hard. It's hard to get people to conform to, like, the mission sometimes.
It's effective, I have to tell you. Everybody stops and pays attention to what he's got to say.
I don't know if it's brainwashing, because like, what does that even mean? But it's definitely indoctrination, and it's definitely onboarding into a particular style of being treated that you normalize.
He's a go-getter, right? He executes and he knows how.
And once it's normalized, like then you're in. Then it's no longer like it's your sense of reality and what's okay is totally skewed towards the American Apparel way of life.
Yo me vine ilegalmente, crucé el cerro. No fue nada fácil. Traía a mi niña de 3 meses. La dejé en Tijuana y crucé yo sola. Los coyotes cruzaron a mi niña y así empezamos una vida aquí en Estados Unidos. Cuando yo entré a American Apparel, que fue en el 2008, estaba la transición, fue muy duro.
We'll crack down on employers who exploit undocumented workers.
How are you?
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Thanks.
Happy birthday.
Fantastic.
We love you.
All of my ancestors were in textiles, as long as anyone can remember, and as many generations back as there is to be recorded. My bubby was a sewer in Montreal at $7 an hour, okay? And my bubby said, look, if you do something, you gotta pay the workers fairly. This Yiddish socialism influenced the whole sweatshop free ethos.
They treat people, not like numbers, not like production.
On-the-job benefits include free phones, after-hours English classes, even a part-time masseur.
Yeah, that's the key, is the dignity. That's what people don't understand. Can you give me a list of benefits? Who cares about the benefits? I mean, of course they're important, but they're secondary to the dignity.
I have an opportunity right now to go through the company. You not only have the most productive garment workers anywhere in the world, you also pay them better than anywhere in the world.
Dove used his microphone to talk about these things that were important, and immigration reform was one of them.
The day after the deal closed on Wall Street,
American Apparel is going public.
Homeland Security came in the morning and declared that they were going to do an I-9 audit.
I have worked for many years as a civil rights lawyer, human rights lawyer, and immigrants' rights lawyer. I was contacted by Dove Charney, who wanted to meet with me. They were the target of an I-9 audit.
He was very public about supporting undocumented workers. Knowing what we know about ICE, I wouldn't doubt that they chose them as a target.
There was this toner cartridge company that went through a similar thing. So I call up this company. I'm in Florida with my mother, and they won't talk to me. And I said, Ma, talk to these guys in Hebrew. We got to get through. You know, my mother's born in Haifa. She says something in Hebrew right away. Code, boom, what's going on? And then I looked at their notice. I looked at mine. It was exactly the same. They just changed the company name. Those guys got attacked with helicopters. Like, they came in and stormed them, locked it down, checked everybody's IDs. It was like crazy. So we started like watching the immigration building where the vans were. It was a really fucking scary time for me. Like, I came just remembering it is crazy. Like, we were there every day. You know, I didn't know when these trucks were gonna come pick up all my work. You know, like, this is like really scary for me. You know, because like, I'm not even an American citizen. They could take the people at any time. You know, like, we don't know who's who. We don't even know, like, we don't know what's going on. Like, the company is doing great. We're making $70 million in EBITDA. We're paying everybody top flight wages, better than anyone else in the industry, let alone the worldwide industry, even the local industry. These guys are coming at us, you know, like, we don't know what's going on. So I remember talking to Robert Kennedy's daughter. She says, everything you do, your duty is to those workers first. I was on my mind. It was 24/7, 24/7, 24/7. I was waking up at 5 in the morning every day trying to figure out what to do with this immigration thing. I go to Burger King. She's passing me my Whopper. I said, how many people are illegal here? And she looks at me and she goes, 90%. Then I started to realize this is like a massive, crazy crisis. I started taking out ads in the New York Times. We authored stuff. We started really getting into it. We went to war with the government.
There was Dove at the head of the march, arm in arm with the workers, during the middle of an audit by this federal agency.
This is a company that like doesn't let you take Christmas Eve off, and yet during the marches, the entire factory would march.
Picket signs, megaphones, shouting, chanting. It was a very Dove-like move.
If one U.S. citizen is detained for even an hour, we will drop a ton of bricks on the government.
There was this period of excitement and celebration, and I look back on this time often, and I get like really emotional when I watch The Office, because Andy Bernard at the end says,
I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them.
A fifth of the company's staff fired because they didn't have proper paperwork. Immigration and Customs Enforcement investigators looked at American Apparel's employment records. If the documents didn't hold up, the workers weren't rounded up or arrested, but the company was forced to fire them.
I was going to leave, and I saw that his door was open and the lights were off. Dove was actually in there, and he was sitting in the dark, and he was crying, and he said, there are people that I know that have been working with me for so long, and they just left today, and they're never coming back. And he was so devastated by this. It sounds bad, but that's when I realized he was a person.
When I went public, I was going to give stock to all the employees. But I couldn't give them their stock because they didn't have Social Security numbers. Too complicated, so I paid them cash. Depending on how many years they were there, $20,000, $30,000 each. It was about over $1 million in one day. Like, I just wrote all these checks.
Financially, it was also just a total disaster.
Stop working. Stop working. Come here. Stop working. A lot of pressure on the issue of immigration.
Y hay muchas presiones con respecto a la inmigración.
And American Apparel is in the center.
Y American Apparel está en el centro.
We need to bring in more people.
Así que necesitamos traer más gente.
And they need to have good documents.
Y necesitan tener buenos documentos.
Okay? Very important.
Por favor.
It's very important right now.
It's going to take forever for them to find people who are legal citizens or legally able to work here. It's really hard to find people to take those jobs.
Even if you bring in workers of equal skill, they don't have practice of working together. It really screwed up my momentum.
The company had a big growing business, but it had big growing expenses at the same time, which means the company was perpetually on the verge of going broke.
We had to borrow money at higher interest rates in order to bridge the gap of money that we didn't make.
Wall Street pundits would call me. People with hundreds of millions of dollars in loans to American Apparel would call me and would suggest now's the time to convince Dove to move this entire operation to some place in Vietnam. We can cut costs by 60, 70%, and that'll fatten us in terms of profits.
The people that really change the culture are intense. Like Elon Musk lived in his factory. Just a few hundred feet away, you start to lose control. This idea of delegating everything and hiring the professionals and all that, fuck off. This thing is total colossal failure. La Mirada.
The highs and the lows. I don't know if I can only do ominous tones on this. I don't know like how you make this sound not like a horror movie. Although that's what La Mirada was, a horror movie. We had these two buildings. Building 1 was where our offices were, but we also did a lot of manufacturing. Building 2 held a lot of inventory, and it was also where a lot of our shipping happened. What we had was staircases that had kind of like playground slides that went through it, so you could put a box, and the box would slide all the way down to the bottom. We had some consultants come in that said that this was not an efficient system, and that's when they opened La Mirada.
No expense was spared at that place. It was shiny and it was beautiful. It signaled something different that was coming.
John Luttrell was the CFO they brought in 2011. And he was supposed to be the adult in the room who was going to Sort the company out properly once and for all.
We were under a lot of financial stress in connection to the immigration thing. So they wanted a more seasoned, gray-haired CFO so we could weather through it.
There's a huge cultural difference between Luttrell and Dov Charney. Dov thinks he's like a sexy rock star of fashion. Luttrell is an older guy, and he lives out in the countryside. He's looking at retiring, and this is what Luttrell is recommending. So Dov actually kind of feels like he has to say yes. This is a company that is already running on fumes and will not survive if it doesn't work. It's a huge failure. It's a catastrophe. None of it works.
It's strewn all over the place. It's misfiring. It's miscommunicating. Something's wrong with the code. Something's wrong with the shareware, middleware. I don't know what it is.
We were like getting boxes that were supposed to go to like Louisiana.
Like if they make a t-shirt, they cannot get it out of the warehouse.
We lost an enormous amount of money.
Like, the people I know, you just stay La Mirada and it's just like, ugh.
I'm in Las Vegas. I take a limousine from the magic show.
Dov comes in his limo and fucking all hell broke loose.
This is a key aspect of Dov's personality, that inside American Apparel, only Dov can fix everything. So he literally moves into the warehouse.
When they started building a shower for him in the fucking bathroom, it was like, this shit's going south. I never thought anything that he did was what a CEO of a publicly traded company should be doing. That was the point where I'm like, okay, this is not okay anymore.
He had, very significant bouts of anger as long as I've known him. But when he was at La Mirada for a long time, a lot of the lightness that he has went away. He wasn't even going home. He wasn't going to his house. He was living there, working 20, 30 hours a day.
Which then probably starts the cycle of paranoia because you haven't slept and you can't think clearly and you don't know what's going on.
Certain board members, Luttrell, Dov would openly talk about like how those people were like trying to fuck him. And he was like, you need to know that they're not good guys. They're not good people. They're trying to steal this.
People were being let go and let go and let go.
One day I was just tired and frustrated. He was just saying some nonsense. It started getting heated and I started walking out. And he's like, you don't fucking walk out. You don't walk out on me. And he like then proceeded to punch through it was an IKEA desk, but like he punched a fucking hole through it. I do think it was a turning point. A lot of the employees have been there for a long time. Dealing with that was too much for a lot of people.
He slept on a mattress in the warehouse with a walkie-talkie on his chest, so he was available to fix any problem. That's not CEO behavior.
Intensity. Good in, screaming, yelling, fixing. Learned everything about it, fixed it, mastered it, and it was fine.
The CEO of American Apparel has been hit with a $250 million sexual harassment lawsuit.
A former store manager says that Dov Charney forced her to be his sex slave 3 years ago when she was just 18 years old.
This is the second sexual harassment lawsuit brought against the American Apparel CEO Dov Charney this month alone. This one was filed by 4 women, 4 former employees.
Sexual harassment incidents. There was a protest here in Montreal. Yeah, there's a tape.
Morris Charney.
Morris Charney,
how are you?
Dov Charney needs Asian whores. Where are they?
Horseshit.
Where are
You're
they?
Horseshit. You're the biggest whore I've ever seen.
Whores?
Look at you.
Yeah, of course I'm a whore. I like to put the whores in my head.
It's okay. I had to get used to that because it only got worse in the States.
For all your talk of concern for workers, you've been accused of sexually harassing and exploiting workers.
All of those accusations are baseless and meritless.
You're the head of this company.
Yeah.
You have power over every person who works for you.
Okay.
You've had relations with some of the people who work for you.
Look,
Isn't that inappropriate?
Even if what they were saying was exaggerated by the media, there was more than a kernel of truth to it because I had experienced it first person. The climate was one where all of that stuff was possible.
There was an open secret about the kind of relationships that Dove was having with his employees, and it was okay until it started to affect money coming in and it started to affect the decisions that the company was making.
The board's gonna overlook what they're gonna overlook if the money's there.
Shares which once topped $15 now wallow below $1, ridden all the way down under Charney's reign.
Whatever Dove was doing wrong, the cardinal sin was that the stock price tanked. That's the silver bullet.
You have an entrepreneur that actually deserves a lot of credit for building a very successful, thriving business. And then he kind of decided to be Mr. Micromanager, which, you know, a lot of founders, they have a lot of difficulty making that transition.
High crotch undies with girls doing splits starts to feel dated because you've been doing it for a while.
The company, the clothing, the ads, everything that was so exciting for so many years, it plateaued. When I was there was a lot of strong people around him. They, slowly, started leaving.
It went from like the coolest place to work where everyone was like, oh, you work at American Apparel? And it went to, aren't they going bankrupt? Isn't that guy a creep? And I'm like, yeah, but your ability to justify what you were getting from that place started to diminish.
I took advantage of how angry he gets, and I got in a situation where he asked me to leave the company, and I got a severance for that. I found an out that happened to take advantage of his personality for my own financial gain. That's true.
Do you think other people did too?
I'm sure.
The difficult side of it is, like, at the end of the day, he's also still a human being. And you see how hard someone works for something to work out. And you see that there are other people within their own organization that are like undermining him.
Coast is clear. The distribution center is fixed. It's over. I'm happy, but John Luttrell was planning his plan. The distribution center is fixed. We just had a record sales year. I started to say, John Luttrell's got to go. So I'm angling to get him out. And he's trying to devise a plan how to maybe get me out.
Around 2013, American Apparel's kind of cultural relevance started to decline at the same time that they were having a ton of business problems. What happened first, it's hard to say.
By the end of 2013, they don't have enough cash to meet the debts that they are required to pay. Luttrell, as the financial officer, it is literally his job to come up with a way of fixing it. This idea becomes stuck in Luttrell's head. He should somehow organize Dove's removal and then sell the company to someone else. Luttrell actually writes this down on his computer, prints out a copy for himself, and then he doesn't know where the paper gets printed. Someone else finds this piece of paper and immediately takes it to Dove.
It says here, completely incapable of managing a $700 million business. Remove the CEO and replace with an interim replacement, put up the company for sale, and these are the talking points in a presentation he made to the board.
Most boards are somewhere between 9 and 12 people. They are the highest legal authority overseeing the company. Their most important job is to monitor the CEO and dismiss the CEO if necessary.
The board of directors of American Apparel is handpicked by Dov Charney himself. These are people he has known for a long time. He believes they are friends.
That nobody was my friend. You think I put my friends from high school in there?
How's that cricket sound?
Is that a real cricket?
No, these are people I met. Like, take, for example, Robert Greene, writes about the 48 Laws of Power, Art of Seduction. I admire you as a writer. You want to be on my team. Alan Mayer was a crisis manager, media expert. You can manipulate the media. He's a media manipulator. This is not my friends. These people, yeah, okay, I trusted them, big deal. I didn't think they were going to betray me.
John says, I won't be able to make it to New York. Do you have it all under control? Yeah, it was all hug and happy. Even meeting them was hug and happy. Then we walked into this other room, and they laid it on me.
Did you know what you're walking into?
No, I was like, guys, I got a new idea. Let me show you the new shoes we're working on.
I cut him off and I said, look, there's something we need to talk to you about.
They handed me like a notice of termination. We want to take a different direction. They said, look, you can go two ways. So there's good press release, bad press release. You can put them on screen right now. Dov was great, he was good, he's staying on as a consultant. The other one is, Dov's a bad actor, he's a piece of shit, we had to remove him, he can't be part of this company. Which one do you want?
And it gets worse. They spring their second surprise on him. They have discovered Dov has his personal collection of pornography on a company computer, which they now have control of. It's between him and all his various partners. If you don't take the deal, this stuff could be made public.
They told me they're going to assassinate my character if I don't go along with their plan.
We finally said to him at some point late in the evening, look, we've got to call an end to this. We pulled the trigger, metaphorically.
Okay, we have some breaking news right now. American Apparel has terminated Dov Charney.
Dov Charney?
Dov Charney, fired.
Fired.
Law number 5. Reputation is the cornerstone of power. Learn to destroy your enemies by opening holes in their own reputations. Then stand aside and let public opinion hang them.
They were out to kill me in the media. There was a video of me running around in the nude. Suddenly appears, out of nowhere, that night.
Is this why he was fired? The company isn't saying for sure, guys.
The process really began early this year when the board became aware of some information that was disturbing.
Basically, this time around, the company isn't saying specifically what's going on. The last time, back in 2011, you remember he was sued by 5 former employees.
They start this campaign, and they said he committed a crime. We can't tell you what it is, but it's criminal.
We launched an internal investigation.
An investigation into alleged misconduct.
Of misconduct and sexual harassment.
It doesn't matter if it's a false fact. Just put that shit out there, destabilize Charney. He's a threat to our takeover of the company.
The board knew about these things. If they cared about them, they would have used that years ago.
What's going through your head when you left the boardroom?
I was going to get the company back.
Once he got pushed out of his position, he needed a way to basically take control of the board of directors. And the way to do that is to buy a lot of stock.
This hedge fund, Standard General, contacts me.
They selected their name deliberately so that it would be hard to find on the web, because the words Standard and General are so generic, they literally want to run under the radar.
They said, look, we think you're fantastic. We think you should run your company. We're going to lend you $20 million to buy additional stock.
In exchange for borrowing the money, they, of course, wanted control in the company.
This is going to give Standard General seats on the board. The key agreement, though, is that either party can veto the other one. If you come up with a decision and I can just say no, then you have no power at all. It's a huge mistake. Dov, however, believes that they are on the same page, and the plan is get back control of the company and reinstall Dov as CEO.
It was a shitty deal, but I said, wow, I'm going to get my company back right away. So we accumulated an enormous amount of stock, and we had the company in checkmate. We did it in 3 days. It was like, woo! Hostile takeover, gonna be back in the office on Monday.
Everybody's sitting around at the victory dinner saying Dov is back in control. We got him. And then all of a sudden, Dov gets a text message from the head of Standard General, Sue Kim, and said that he needed to meet Dov in Central Park, 5 a.m.
There's no one else around. The way Dov Charney tells it is that Sue Kim is incredibly nervous, incredibly anxious, and is literally scratching himself to a bleed with nervousness.
And he says, we gotta tread carefully. I'm gonna lose my hedge fund. This is much crazier than I anticipated.
Standard General's investors are really furious. You're this, crazy, controversial guy who has sex scandals, and they don't want their money anywhere near your operation.
They're gonna have to manipulate my comeback.
So let's just go through this kabuki show, and this is the phrase that he uses, and Dov buys this. The flip side of that story is that from Standard General's point of view, this was not like a secret meeting. The thing is, our office is literally on the front of Central Park, and there's a coffee stand with a bench right on the edge of the park, and we just said we'd meet for coffee and sit on this bench and talk. At this point, it's a hall of mirrors there, and people are just seeing what they want to see.
They didn't want me around in the company. It was too complicated to bring me back. He said, wear a mask. They had this idea, hire a woman who'll be the CEO. You'll control her completely. I had found a woman to be the fake CEO. It was Paula Schneider.
He told me he had a big hand in picking this new CEO, Paula Schneider. She's a friend of his.
In the beginning, she meets with me. We're talking every day.
He called me with Paula Schneider on the phone and said, she's gonna run the company like how he would run it. But when she actually came in, it was a completely different story.
Standard General recently struck a deal with Charney whereby it lent him money to increase his stake in American Apparel, but it essentially would have control of that stake.
So are they his ally here or his adversary?
Well, that's what's very unclear.
That is the latest on American Apparel and the unclear future of Dov Charney.
I can't believe, though, it's over. I was good at what was, I was...
I know you were. I know you were. I know you were. And then the Great Recession hit. And then all this, and then the fucking distribution center.
The immigration, it was tough.
The immigration thing.
Oh.
Are you kidding me? You can do this thing all over again.
Yeah.
It's not over.
I had to get the company back, but the biggest mistake I made is I locked up all my wealth with Standard General to get it back, and then Standard General double-crossed me.
Debtor's calls our first witness, Ms. Paula Schneider. Good morning, Ms. Schneider.
Good morning.
What's your current position?
I'm the CEO of American Apparel.
Paula defected to their side. They're all working together. She was supposed to be the puppet. Conventional is safe. It's financeable. It's predictable. Paul Schneider will be predictable, will control her. He's out of control. They're in control. Obama's predictable to the Democratic Party. One of the things that's so frightening about Donald Trump, he's unpredictable to everyone. You know what I mean? It's scaring the entire world order. And by the way, I disagree with his product, his politics. on many levels. But the fact that he's unpredictable is frightening. But there's a class of Americans that adore unpredictable.
Well, they're like chapters in the American Apparel saga. And when it came to the final, chapter, that's when I started, going to see Dove as a friend again, because he was, totally destroyed as a human being. He was losing his company, and so he had sent me to New York to try to go talk to Soo Kim and try to reason with him. And this wasn't like a one-off. It was about 6 or 8 weeks, because Soo had made an offer to Dove that was pretty juicy. And he was like, he'll still run the company. I'm just not letting him be CEO. And then we'll sing Kumbaya together. And Dove was like, no.
We gave you a great deal, and you didn't take it. No, I don't want to play masked. They didn't want me to be me.
It was like, two lions that not one of them was going to back down. It was very sad, because then Soo made it very clear, if he doesn't take that, it's war, And I guess they went to war, and, nothing comes out of war.
At this point, Dove has lost. There is no way he can be the CEO.
By making these false promises that they were going to work and make their best efforts to put me back into the control seat, what they did is they put themselves in the control seat, but it financed it.
It's astonishing that anyone would sign an agreement that says, if this plan doesn't work, I owe you $20 million. Dove thinks he can fight his way out of it, right? The story of Dove's entire life is that he has always fought and he has always won. So why would this be any different?
So we've got Paula Schneider, and she's already got a group of disgruntled managers who are calling on the board to reinstate Dove Charney. Did American Apparel, I'll ask you this, Charles, handle the termination of Dove Charney appropriately?
When Standard General first takes over American Apparel with Paula Schneider and the gang, they start fogging over the nipples.
They fuzzed over the nipples on the website, and there was this internet backlash, what is this, guys? It was just so out of touch, right? Because that was part of it, is you had these women that were kind of out of touch.
Every day, there would be a group out in front that would be handing out pamphlets that would say all of the horrible things, that I was going to take it offshore, that I was going to move to El Salvador, to Mexico, to you name it, I was moving there. I never had any intention of moving American Apparel anywhere but keeping it in the United States.
Pretty much anyone that Dove trusted was fired from the company.
Has defraudado a todos los empleados de esta compañía y te has burlado de todos nosotros.
There was one day when a group of, rabid employees out in the parking lot were beating up my piñatas. Extremely disturbing. And again, okay, I'll go back to it's a t-shirt company and I had death threats. I mean, really, I was literally trying to save 9,000 jobs.
They basically crashed the company, knowing they wiped out the
100% understood
shows,
their
knowing
anger
they could have
and their
hundreds of
frustration
dollars
because,
as we
know,
with Main Street
there are people that, when they lost their job at American Apparel, they ended up in sweatshops.
Liquidation.
Being
Today,
on the other
when
side
some
of
of
the
the
picket
people involved
lines,
in
it
the
was
turnaround talk
an
publicly.
intense
They
situation.
say, oh, we sold
It's
the
just
company.
absolute
They sold the company.
pandemonium.
They sold the mark to an offshore operator in Gildan. And all the jobs were lost. All the stores were closed. Gildan said, we'll manufacture in Los Angeles. We're going to do some offshore and some in Los Angeles, but all those jobs are gone. And it's zero. Everything got zeroed out. And that was it. So I had to start the new company.
I have an offer. I could buy it out. I couldn't get the company.
Immediately, they decided to
Standard
start
General was
producing
bear hugging
tees
it. They
in
wouldn't let it
Honduras.
go.
Immediately. I ended up staying at the company for, I think, a year after Dove left, and a lot of it was because I really wanted to make sure that the people that worked for me were taken care of. I just didn't want the experience at American Apparel to be this horrible thing again.
In fact, I know we will.
Even though there's a lot of sort of...
And did anyone hear them? Did anyone hear them call me a pervert?
¿Alguien escuchó que hayan dicho perverso a él en la reunión?
You keep a list of the worst CEOs of every year, and Dove Charney is number one?
So it should be a good feeling to have all those people recognizing you.
Yeah.
Huh?
Can I grab some Perrier?
Okay, let me tell you about him, this guy.
I shouldn't have wasted my time fucking around for a year and a half. You know, I found a document today that's gonna kill Standard General. I think
You have to stop.
No, I'm owed money. No. You can say no.
No,
I'm gonna get it.
No. I want to listen to me. I want you to start going in the ring and fight.
No, I'm gonna go in, but I'm not letting go of my clients.
Yeah. But do something else.
I'm not creating something else. I'm taking their company.
I'm actually not going to cross-examine Mr. Trump, which is why I want you to address the motion to strike. There is a complete other side to this story, and it's all not for this purpose of the confirmation hearing. Because what we've effectively heard here, I really feel like it's the Kennedy assassination theory.
Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take the matter under advisement. We will reconvene telephonically at 11 a.m. on Monday.
Fuck, this is heavy.
I listened carefully to Mr. Charney's testimony regarding his founding of American Apparel. I have no doubt that he firmly and honestly believes that the best way to rejuvenate and grow the company is to place him back at the helm. But as I said several times during the trial, this proceeding is not about the circumstances or even the correctness of Mr. Charney's termination. Mr. Charney's objections to confirmation are overruled, and his request to adjourn the confirmation hearing and to terminate exclusivity are denied.
Number of months later, they sell the brand for $88 million.
The struggling retailer American Apparel is set to shut its stores across the world after a bankruptcy court approved its sale last week.
Both Amazon.com and Forever 21 lined up to buy the hip retailer. In the end, the Canadian t-shirt maker Gildan won an auction for the brand.
We got close, but there's just too many things we couldn't get done. I gotta take this call. I'll call you right back. Hey, how are you? Well, I mean, you know, I'm doing good because we're gonna start a new business. This America. We're gonna make LA apparel. That's it. That's all.